Welcome to the future side of Coyote Aviation. Over the last 4 years, the City of Redlands released many public statements about the land lease dispute with Coyote Aviation. Its position is that in September of 2000, Coyote Aviation signed a 20-year agreement with the City of Redlands that ended in April of 2020. Think about that for a minute. Exactly 20 years beginning in a September and ending in an April? I'd like to see that calendar. The city has claimed in court that despite the numerous inconsistencies, direct contradictions, and other errors in the lease you saw in Part 1, the contract had an unambiguous termination date of April 4th, 2020, and that there were clear instructions regarding the extension of the lease. Those directives mandated that the city be notified in writing 45 days before that April 4th, 2020 expiration of Coyote's intent to extend its tenure on the land parcel. The city claims Coyote Aviation simply forgot to submit timely written notice of intent to continue the agreement, and holds that that misstep entitled the city to end Coyote's tenancy and take possession of the facility that Coyote built and paid for. You also discovered that the city made an error in drafting the lease, using a termination date 5 months shy of the 20th anniversary of signing.
I don't think that's right.
A period length agreed to by both parties. Note that no one at the city has ever claimed that before the wrong deadline printed in the lease, they did not know of Coyote's intent to continue tenancy, only citing the technicality that written notice was not submitted 45 days before that city-made wrong mistake. For Coyote, is giving up its entire facility to the city a fair penalty for bilateral confusion caused by the city's own error? Besides, the city did have written notice before that deadline, an affirmation from the airport supervisor. You saw that evidence in Part 1. As of today, city staff and most of city council do not care. They have already taken the Coyote facility and are making money on it while you watch this video. The truth is that when Airport Supervisor Schaefer and his superior Tim Sullivan submitted to the City of Redlands a redundant June 23, 2020 request from Coyote Aviation to extend its land lease, along with notes to correct the wrong termination date, Redlands Director of Facilities and Community Services Chris Boatman saw it as an opportunity. If the city were to ignore the call to amend the wrong date, and also claim the redundant request was late, submitted after the deadline created by the errant date in the agreement, it would be able to terminate Coyote's lease altogether. This could allow the city to acquire the improvements Coyote had made to the city land without compensating Coyote Aviation and its investors. Honorable? No. Doable? Boatman thought so. It had been done before. In 2005, a small business, a land lease holder with hangars at Redlands Airport called Aerodynamics, got behind in its consumer price index adjusted lease payments to the city. After many warnings and giving the business opportunity to fix things, the city evicted Aerodynamics and paid the business about 60 cents on the dollar for their property. Afterward, by renting out the hangars, the city was able to recoup its investment in less than 6 years. That city-owned facility, which Redlands did not pay a dime to construct, now is the largest producer of city revenue on the airport. Boatman desired to replicate the takeover of Aerodynamics with Coyote by retroactively terminating the Coyote land lease after the confusion created by the city's own drafting mistake, never discussing anything with Coyote, never giving Coyote an opportunity to correct the alleged error, and then willfully preventing Coyote from negotiating a new contract. In doing so, Coyote tenants would be forced off the property, leaving the entire facility behind for the city to use as a revenue generator, as it is doing now. Of course, no one at the city will admit that plan. In fact, the city says that it has always been willing to renegotiate with Coyote Aviation, but that Coyote has never responded to its many reasonable offers. Here are Redlands Mayor Eddie Tejeda's own words taken from his post on the website Nextdoor. He said, "The city believed the lease should be renegotiated but only received a request from Coyote to keep the original terms of the land lease, thereby reinstating the expired terms of the prior lease." And from a city statement released in March 2024 justifying the city's actions in the eviction of Coyote tenants, it says, "For nearly 4 years, since Coyote Aviation allowed its lease at the Redlands Municipal Airport to expire on April 4, 2020, city staff have attempted to negotiate in good faith with Coyote to provide a new lease with terms that are both fair to Coyote and honor the city's legal and financial obligations to the airport's owners, the taxpayers of Redlands." Nearly 4 years, eh? Since April 4th, 2020, eh? Benevolent city? I don't think so. How much time passed before the city offered Coyote Aviation a new lease based on a market analysis of the land parcel's value? Days? Weeks? More? According to the statement, it sounds like it was a very short amount of time. In fact, it was day after day, week after week, month after month. The city's actions, or lack of action, demonstrated no interest in offering Coyote a chance to renegotiate. The city wanted the Coyote Aviation facility without Coyote Aviation there. And of all the documents we acquired using the Freedom of Information Act between February 19, 2020 and August 23rd of 2021, not a single one showed that the city was interested in fair rental value of the land underneath our Coyote Aviation building, the land that the city owns. Not one was about land value, either sale, rental, or redevelopment. The reality is that the city never wanted to allow Coyote to renegotiate. Note the length of time that passed before the first genuine offer was made. Oh, there's much more evidence than that. How about the city's own statements? The first relates to that October 20, 2020 City Council meeting where Coyote was discussed for the first time. A week later, Chris Boatman contacted Joe Fiandaca of Fiandaca Appraisal Services. Fiandaca asked Boatman the purpose of the evaluation. Boatman told him that there were no plans for the city to renew Coyote Aviation's ground lease, and Fiandaca put that in his appraisal report. Again, on March 24, 2021, in a recorded meeting, Coyote was told by Chris Boatman that the city would not renegotiate with Coyote Aviation. Hear it for yourselves.
So basically, where we are today is, as you know, I mean, the council's made a decision to terminate the lease. They did consider renegotiating the lease. You know, we talked about the options of renegotiating, and basically they are not interested in renegotiating the lease.
And later in the same meeting, City Attorney Dan McHugh doubled down, reiterating that the city had no intent to renegotiate with Coyote.
Tim, I'm happy to respond to that. This is Dan. And again, just very simply, we are where we are at this point in time. The council has decided to terminate the lease and not to renegotiate. So we are back right exactly where Chris has said we are. And I understand everything you have said. We have presented all appeals letters to the city council, and the city council has decided not to renew the lease. That's exactly where we stand.
On November 27, 2023, in a court-mandated settlement conference, Chris Boatman and city attorneys told the arbitrator, retired Judge Christopher Warner, that the city did not want Coyote Aviation as a tenant on city land, that the city would not negotiate a new lease with Coyote. That was at the end of 2023. Now, what did the city say? For 4 years since Coyote Aviation allowed its lease at Redlands Municipal Airport to expire on April 4th, 2020, yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada.
It's clear the city never intended to renew Coyote's lease or even renegotiate a lease. Saying that the city was willing to renegotiate and that Coyote refused to respond is gaslighting the public, an intentional misportrayal of the facts. So what was the city doing after initially deciding not to reinstate or renegotiate Coyote's lease? Between that very first City Council meeting when Coyote was discussed on October 20th, 2020, and the Council's termination of Coyote's lease, city staff, primarily Chris Boatman, Tim Sullivan, and Bruce Schaefer, were scrambling to determine the value of the improvements Coyote Aviation had made to the city's land parcel and estimate how much revenue could be produced by those hangars when the city gained control of them. In November, a secret appraisal of the Coyote property. In December, numerous emails regarding the perceived income made by Coyote, comparing it to other airports and construction costs. In January, a flurry of emails about the revenue-generating potential of the Coyote hangars for the city, including a shocking email from Chris Boatman directing Airport Supervisor Schaefer to develop a spreadsheet showing how much money the Coyote Aviation hangars will bring to the city when the city acquires them. There were also presentations to the City Council and the Airport Advisory Board misrepresenting terms of Coyote's current lease with the city. For instance, on January 21st, 2021, only weeks before the City Council voted to terminate Coyote Aviation's land lease, Assistant Director of Facilities and Community Services Chris Boatman made a presentation to the Redlands Airport Advisory Board. He showed the board members that Coyote Aviation had received its negotiated 20-year first term, and he validated it by citing the wrong execution date, twice. For 6 months, all of Coyote's attempts to work with the city were rebuffed, but Coyote was never enlightened to Boatman's plan. Communication between Coyote and the city staff and council was actively prevented, and Boatman never doused the smoldering hope of Coyote to renegotiate. Two strategies that thwarted Coyote from mounting any kind of defense to the city's plan to terminate the land lease, and strategies that violated Coyote's constitutional rights to due process. The COVID pandemic aided in Boatman's ability to keep Coyote from interacting with staff or city council. On February 5th, 2021, only 2 weeks after Boatman's presentation to the Redlands Advisory Board, the San Bernardino County Sentinel published a newspaper article shining a light on the City of Redlands' violation of the Brown Act. The City Council, the paper alleged, had not allowed real-time communication between the public and City Council during the previous months, exactly when Coyote Aviation was trying to initiate dialogue with the city. That was a violation of the Brown Act.
Wow, that's pretty shocking.
All in all, between June 23, 2020 and March 18, 2021, 2 days before Coyote received notice of City Council's action to terminate our tenancy, Boatman, McHugh, and City Council members snubbed at least 28 attempts of Coyote Aviation to get answers, to work with city staff, to communicate with city staff or City Council, or resolve the nebulous tenancy situation. 28 non-answers, 28 non-responses, and then the guillotine fell. December 17th, 2019, January 21st, 2020, June 23rd, 2020, twice, September 21st, September 25th, October 19th, twice, October 20th, to each of 5 City Council members serving at the time with no response received. January 5th, 2021. January 6th, 2021. And it was on that day that Boatman called for Schaefer to develop a spreadsheet showing how much money the Coyote Aviation hangars could generate for the city. January 7th, January 8th, January 11th. March 1st, March 8th, March 15th, March 17th, March 18th, 2021. And how many attempts after March 18th, 2021 to engage with the city? Well over 20. How much money, time, and effort could have been saved if anyone who made the decision to terminate Coyote's lease had simply engaged in dialogue with Coyote before all this happened. I believe some member of council would have had the honor to consider before voting that the termination date in the lease had been the fault of the city, and that because of it Coyote never received from the city what had been negotiated and promised. That in the mistaken shortening of the pledged 20-year first term and the capitalization by Chris Boatman on the error, council was also preventing Coyote from receiving the lease extension also agreed to by the city, that the city's own error would lead to the destruction of a valued small business, the loss of equity to those who had invested in it, trusting Coyote and the city, and the colossal emotional toll on the normal, average, mostly elderly people hurt by the takeover of their property. While the pandemic helped prevent Coyote from initiating dialogue with the city staff or city council, we can thank the COVID pandemic for our meticulous chain of evidence, because we were not allowed to communicate face-to-face with anyone from the city. Everything, all communications, are in email exchanges that Coyote has saved. And before City Council's unanimous vote to terminate the lease of Coyote Aviation, what did council members believe? Never even having engaged in dialogue with anyone from Coyote Aviation, they believed exactly what staff member Chris Boatman had told them. They believed wrongly that Coyote Aviation had received its full 20-year first term. They believed wrongly that Coyote had not notified the city of intent to continue its land lease before the deadline in the agreement. They believed wrongly that the lease provisions of the Coyote land lease were below market value and unfair to the city. They believed correctly that Coyote's valuable facility could bring a considerable revenue stream to the city if acquired, but they believed wrongly that Coyote Aviation would allow the takeover to happen without a fight.